All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're gonna do something fun. I'm gonna start a series where I try to complete my collection of shoot 'em ups. These are games that I've wanted for a long time, but for the most part they're just too expensive and I just can't afford them. So I've passed on them. So before I get into these games that I'm wanting to get in this series, let me just tell you a couple things. Shoot 'em ups have become my favorite genre. They're quick, easy to play. Absolutely love them. Growing up as a kid, they were not my favorite, but they have become my favorite. I used to like games like Final Fantasy and Zelda, games that were longer and took you more time. But today I've become a shoot 'em up guy. 7 or 8 years ago is when I really got into them hard. Started to research all the different systems. Really kind of started when I was playing the Wii virtual console. Started to see these Japanese only shoot 'em up games and started to learn about systems that I'd never heard of, like the TurboGrafx 16, and discovered that there was the Japanese version of the Genesis. The Mega Drive had all these cool shooters. And so I began to just learn about these. I went online to racketboy.com and would read all about all these awesome shoot 'em ups for the Super Nintendo, for the PlayStation 2. And based on the ones I had been playing, I really liked them. And I decided back then I wanted to buy all these shoot 'em ups that everyone said was good. And that was my goal, was to get them. And then I realized, oh, they're really expensive. So if you go to any, you go to pricecharting.com and you look at any list of the most expensive games for a particular console generation or a platform, usually shoot 'em ups are going to be one of those that are high up there. There's an occasional very rare game that's just extremely rare for whatever reason. They're the limited editions and all that stuff, but for the most part, shoot 'em ups are always up there as some of the most expensive games. Why is that? Number one, not a lot of people like them. In Japan, they're way more popular than they are in America, but they're not a Madden and they're not a Call of Duty. They're just not the games that are the most popular. They're not a Tetris. They're not a Minecraft. So they have a small community of people, relatively speaking, that like them. And so they just don't ever sell a lot of copies, right? But they have a rabid fan base, a cult following like myself. So not a lot of people buy them, and so they don't make a lot of money, and there's never a lot of copies of them made or sold, but they're extremely desired, and so it's just supply and demand. Low supply, high demand results in shoot 'em ups being extremely expensive. Not all shoot 'em ups are extremely expensive, but more than likely the really good ones are. And so I started to, come up with this list years ago of these awesome games that I wanted to play, and time after time they were just too expensive. Now, in recent years, it's really been awesome. We have got on the PS4 and the Switch tons and tons and tons of remakes, not really remakes, but just reports of these games that have come out, some digitally and some physically. In fact, I just got one here not too long ago. Radiant Silvergun came out on the Switch. That was a game that was $200 or $300, and it only came out on the Japanese Saturn. And now that's on the Switch, and it's a reasonable price. A lot of these re-releases that have come out have solved a lot of my problems. I've been able to get a lot of these games through those newer systems. And so I'm really happy about that. This series would have a gigantic list if it wasn't for these re-releases have came out. So a bunch of the games I've always wanted have actually come out recently on more modern hardware, and I've picked them up. So behind me, I got all kinds of shmups, all kinds of shoot 'em ups that I've wanted for years. However, there's a lot of games that have just never been re-released that are still hard to get. And I'm going to talk today about those. I'm going to give you the list of 20 games that I've just never been able to find, whether it's digitally, physically, whatever the case, or I can get them, they're just too expensive. And I'm going to give you that list now. I'm just going to put them on the screen and talk about them. Here's the 20. Crisis Force on the Famicom, Gunnak on the NES, Gunsmoke on the NES, Scat or Final Mission on the NES, Axelay Super NES, Macross Scrambled Valkyrie for the Famicom, for the Super Famicom, R-Type 3 for the SNES, Rendering Ranger R2 for the SNES, Space Megaforce for the Super Nintendo, Blast Wind for the Saturn, Donpachi Saturn, Dodonpachi Saturn, and I know that some of these are also on the PS1. Shien Ryu on the Saturn, Hyper Duel on the Saturn, Zanuck X Zanuck, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, on the Japanese PS1, Gigawing Dreamcast, Gigawing 2 Dreamcast, Mars Matrix Dreamcast, Parodius Collection on the PSP, and Moochie Moochie Pork / Pink Sweets on the Japanese Xbox 360. So that's 20 games that just, as I brainstormed, I've never been able to get, and I want them bad, and they're fun. And some of them are like outstanding, and some of them are just more novel. Like Gunsmoke. It's just a novelty. It's a quirky game, but it's fun. Now there's some games, I will just say this. There's some games that I don't have, but I didn't put on the list because I have them digitally. Rekka I have on the 3DS. It was on the Wii U and the 3DS eShop, and so I have that on my 3DS. A game called Gaia Seed I have on my PSP digitally. That was a PS1 Japanese game. Rekka, extremely expensive. Gaia Seed, extremely expensive. But those are games that I have. Now there's a ton of Neo Geo games and TurboGrafx 16 games that I don't have, but I have them digitally, whether it's on a store, like on an eShop, Virtual Console, or whether I've bought like the TurboGrafx Mini that has like 40 or 50 games on them. I have a way to play them digitally. And so I'd rather have them physically, but I have those games digitally. And I don't mean ROMs, because I've got a few emulated systems too, but I mean, legally speaking, I have a digital copy of the game. And so these 20 are games that I just don't have them physically, don't have a legal digital copy of them, but I really want them badly. Now, I brainstormed this list about a week ago before I obviously filmed this video today, and I realized one of these games on here, Gunsmoke, it's not hard to get. So I went and got it. So I have Gunsmoke. Went to eBay, 20 bucks shipped. Gunsmoke came with this dust cover, so that's knocked off the list. That was an easy one. But now I want to make a series, me trying to complete this collection, and it's mainly going to be focusing on the rest of these. However, I'm going to knock a few of these off the list because they're just insane. Rendering Ranger R2, I went on price charting, went on eBay. It's about a $600 game loose. I just can't do that. I'm not saying I couldn't make it happen if I worked hard enough. I could do it, but I'm not spending that amount of money. It's not worth it. It's like throwing money away to me. It's a cool game. It's not worth it. That's way more money than what it should be. So I'm kicking that off the list. Japanese PS1 game, Zanuck, or however you say it. It's at least 250 bucks, if not more. Can't do it. It seems like a pretty cool game. I just can't pay that money. I can't pay $200, $300, $400 for a game that's not worth it. It's just crazy. So I've boiled this down to 15 games that I'm going to go for, and that's what this series is going to be about. But it's reasonable. Some of them are still way too expensive, but I'm going to go for them. But some of the ones like Blast Wind, for instance, it's just too much money. Can't do it. And so the series is going to be about these 15 games. And I'll put them on the screen now. Crisis Force, Gunnack, Scat, Axelay, Macross Scrambled Valkyrie, R-Type 3, Space Megaforce, Dodonpachi, Shien Ryu, Gigawing, Gigawing 2, Mars Matrix, the Parodius Collection, and Moochie Moochie Pork. Those 15 games I'm going to try to chip away at and acquire them. I will tell you that if I can, I'm going to go with the cheaper version of the game. So for instance, Gunnack. Let me tell you a quick story about Gunnack. This is a sad story. Years ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago, I'd say around 2012, I decided I was going to start going to yard sales and garage sales and buying old games and selling them and flipping them on eBay. And I did that for a little bit. And one of the games I picked up at a store, this person never checked the price of his games. If it was an NES game, he just put it for a certain price. I wish things like this still existed in our modern day, but they don't. But this guy had all his NES games at basically like $3, unless it was like Mario or, you know, some well-known popular series. They were just $3. And so I bought Gun Knack for $2.97. And I bought a bunch of other games, some at garage sales, some at video game stores. Went home, went to, I believe it was Lukey Games is where I was going back in those days, looking at the price of games. And I sold them on eBay. I had TMNT Tournament Fighters for the NES. I had, I got 2 copies of Final Fight 3 for the SNES. The name is escaping me, but for the SNES, it's like an evolution game. Evo, the Search for Eden. Got that game for like $6. Flipped them all on eBay. Made really good money. The Gun Knack, I bought for $3, sold for $50. I wish that game could be repurchased today for $50. So back when I was buying all these games, I would test them out, clean them, put them on eBay, sell them. And most of them I didn't care about. But I remember playing Gun Knack. Now this is a few years before I really got into shmups. I didn't really know about them, didn't really care about them, didn't even know that Gun Knack was that rare of a game. I just knew it had a decent price on eBay. But I remember putting in Gun Knack just to test it, just so I could sell it and put it on eBay and say it's tested. And having a blast playing it, just literally thinking, this is an amazing game. Wish I could go back and tell myself, don't sell that game. But I sold it. So that's an example of a game. I'm going to try to get the Famicom version of it. It's still $80, $90, unfortunately. But it's not $300, $400, $500. So anytime of these 15 games that I can get the cheaper version of it, that's what I'm going to do. So Crisis Force, Gun Knack, and Scat, more than likely will all 3 be Famicom. Now, Crisis Force is only on Famicom. Axelay, if I come across an SNES version, I might pick it up. Macross Scrambled Valkyrie is only on the Famicom. R-Type 3, I'll probably go with the Famicom version. It's just cheaper. Space Megaforce, I'll probably go with the Super Famicom version, which is called Super Aleste. And then Donpachi, Dodonpachi, and Shinru are all also on the PS1, but I think the Saturn ports are probably better, and the price isn't a whole lot different. Gigawing 2, and Mars Matrix, I'm definitely going for the Japanese Dreamcast version because that's where it's cheaper. The Proteus Collection, I'm definitely going to get that on the PSP. And then Moochie Moochie Pork on the Xbox 360 is only Japanese, however, it's region free. Here's my list. It's going to be, for the most part, except for maybe 1 or 2, all the Japanese version of the game. But for all intents and purposes, this will complete my shoot 'em ups collection. And anything else is either just unbelievably too expensive, or I already have it. So if you're thinking, man, you didn't talk about this, I probably already have it. I've got a pretty big shmup collection. I probably have it already, or I have it digitally. So this is all that I'm lacking. And so I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to try to knock this out, and I'll make a video on each pickup that I do. And then when I'm done, we'll move on to some other challenge or some other series. But this is what I want to go for. I think it's going to be fun. I hope you guys stay tuned for it. If you want to see videos on this topic, on this series, please subscribe. Like this video, it really helps if you liked it. Please comment below, what are some of your favorite shoot 'em ups? Do you have any of these on this list that I've mentioned that I'm going after? What's your thoughts on those games? Share this video. I'm a tiny YouTube channel. I'd like to, grow a little bit. So share this video if you think it's worth sharing. Hopefully you've had a great day. And until next time, take care.